Welcome to Between the Before and After, a podcast about the stories that shape us. I'm your host, Coach John McLernan, and each episode I bring you an inspiring guest with a moving story that shines a light on the power of the human spirit. Before we dive in, I want to let you know about two very important things. Number one, the stories shared here are often gritty, raw, and vulnerable, and very likely will include speaking about sensitive topics suited for a mature audience. Number two, this podcast is also broadcast live on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So on whatever platform you follow myself or Freedom Nutrition Coaching, you have the opportunity to participate in this discussion during the live stream. And we encourage your participation both by commenting and asking questions. And so this podcast is about exploring the stories that take place between the before and after photos, not just in the realm of weight loss, but in all areas of life. So let's dive in. All right, welcome back. I'm here with my guest today, Ryan Cote. Does that get pronounced like different ways? Like, do you get like Cote or Cody or things like that?
If I don't phonetically spell it, I would say 90% of the time it's Cote, C-O-T. Technically, there's an accent over the E.
Right,
I
because
just never
French,
use that.
maybe?
Yeah. So I never use that, and so but Cote is the right way. But most people say Cote. But honestly, though, I would say Cote as well. So
Fair enough. I was trying to think of an equivalent English word, but I'm not quite sure if there is another, like tote, I guess.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, maybe. But then we have like coyote, but then that word gets pronounced like 8 different ways too. It's like coyote, coyote.
I'm used to it.
Yeah.
I tend to like say my name fast too, and so everyone always thinks that my name is Ron. Not everyone, but I've had I used to do martial arts at this place in New York City, and everyone thought my name was Ron, and I just stopped correcting him, and I just went with it. So I was Ron Cote for a certain period in my life.
Okay. That's good. Well, speaking of life, where are you at right now? Kind of what's going on with you? Because we're gonna explore your story a little bit here, but I'd like to give people kind of a snapshot of where you're presently at, and then we're gonna figure out how you got there.
So yes, New Jersey. I live in Montvale, town northern Bergen County called Montvale. Right now I'm in Morristown in our co-working space. I'm in this little. I was watching. I'm in this little booth that we use for privacy, and so
Yeah.
I'm in Morristown, New Jersey, right now as we talk.
All right, cool. And what is it that you do?
So a few things. So I'm in my family business, and we've got a marketing agency that goes back to the mid '60s. My great uncle started in 1966. That's where I spend
Wow.
most of my time.
Old school
Um,
marketing, like
yeah,
pre-digital
print.
era.
Yes, we
Yeah.
do digital now, but we still do a lot of print. They say print is dead, but it is not. It's just
Yeah.
changed. And so, and then most recently, we started a roofing business, which is totally random, not at all connected to marketing, but it's something we
Yeah.
wanted to try, and we're doing that right now as well.
How do you get from like marketing and print and digital to let's put roofs on buildings?
It's a good question. So let's see. I'll give you the short answer. Well, so we have some of our clients are contractors. We do their digital
Okay.
marketing for lead
Right,
gen,
right, right.
and it was just we wanted to try something different, diversify, and the contractor business, especially using subs, was attractive to us because we're the sales and marketing arm. We get the
Mm,
lead, and then we bring on our sub to do the actual work, and then we manage the relationship with the customer, make sure they're happy. And so it's a very scalable. I mean, we just started 6 months ago, so
okay.
maybe we should talk in a couple of years and see
Yeah.
how we do with it. But it's a very scalable, very transactional business. They need a roof, we give it to them, 1 or 2 days, done. You
Hey,
know.
I need a roof. Yeah, call these people. We'll give you a roof. There you go. Ta-da! Easy peasy, right? Just
Oh
and
yeah.
we're coming out of a pandemic and just going into a recession. It seems like,
Mm.
which is always a great time to start a business as well.
Yeah. Well, when we started it, it wasn't like this, but we got the ball rolling like Q4 of last year, and so we officially became licensed in January, and now we're actively doing jobs. I think my brother I just had lunch with my brother, and he just left to go to a job, and so we're actively doing work now.
And you use the term subs. I'm assuming that means like subcontractors. So does it mean that like do you or your brother like do any of the actual physical work of like applying roofing materials to the top of a building, or are you almost like a middle person here?
Middle person, and let me be clear in case my brother Scott watches this. I'm not very active in the business. It's really him and my cousin. So I don't
Okay.
want him to think I'm like taking credit for the business. I do a networking group to help generate leads, but that's like right now at least the extent of my involvement.
Okay.
But to answer your question, yes, the subcontractors. We get the customer, and then we give them the work, and they do the actual work. And our job is to make sure it's done done right, and the customer's happy.
Yeah, yeah. So, if we rewind the clock a little bit here, so the print business has been in your family since 1966. Now, I'm going to go on a limb
Mhm.
here and suggest that was probably before you were born.
It was. I was born in '79. I'm 43.
Oh yeah, okay. You could have told me you were like born in '85, and I would have believed you. You have a very youth. For those who are listening after the fact, Ryan has a very youthful face, and so
You
y-
know, I got my hopefully my wife watches this because she likes to remind me that, you don't look as young as you used to. I'm like, obviously I'm aging every day,
yeah.
but
Well, and you have 3 kids as well, do you? Is that
I
right?
have 3 daughters. Yeah, 3 daughters, 11, 9, and 7.
Okay, that's gonna be you're really moving into, like, a fun stage with them too, like, I mean, I look at it like I just have a 15-month-old, and we just moved from kinda like one stage to the next where a little bit of self-determination is starting to show up, and
Yeah,
so
they're
now it's
walking. He or
not
she.
just crying because sort of I'm upset, but crying because 'cause I'm mad, like
Yeah, it gets I guess it's all different. I always ask people that have older kids, does it get easier? And they said, not really. It's just you're dealing with different kinds of things. Now they're driving and you're worried about them driving. And,
Mm,
when they're your age, your son or daughter's age, you're worried about them getting into everything and they don't know what they're
yeah,
eating. Oh, this is a Tide Pod. That looks yummy. And they're like, oh,
yeah,
and
it has
so
bright colors and yeah, we can excuse toddlers eating Tide Pods, but, like, teenagers eating Tide Pods, I don't know, man. That was
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, but growing up, you had some kind of tough and kind of awkward years as like a teenager. And you mentioned even that you'd had to grapple a little bit with an eating disorder. I wonder
Yeah.
if you're comfortable sharing a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. Why not? Yeah, I've always been a little bit like I've always been in my head, I guess the best way to describe it. Always like
Hmm.
reevaluating myself, even conversations. I can hold a conversation. I talk to people all day, but always in my head, like, why did you say that? And for many years, and I guess you could say most kids when they're growing up in high school and middle school, they feel awkward. But for
Yeah.
me, it always felt like super awkward. Um, like I didn't fit in. I had moments of like feeling like I fit in, and moments I didn't feel like I fit in. It kind of was just like this cycle. The eating disorder, yeah, that was like seventh and eighth grade. Just didn't eat a lot. Eventually got myself out of that, and I'm guessing you're gonna ask me how, and I'm trying to remember how
Well, I'm
you
kind of
know,
curious, like what, because I look at every behavior and I'm really interested because very often we have these conversations, we talk about people's like sort of adult life experiences, but I think we do ourselves a disservice and we kind of skip over some of the things that happen in like in adolescence and sort of how they shape the adults that we become as well. So, you know, um, you mentioned like I mean, how does someone even sort of develop an eating disorder? What was in your eyes like maybe I guess like skipping eating or kind of starving yourself? Was that kind of what was going on, and maybe what were you trying to achieve with that in your mind at that time?
I remember it was like I was in fifth grade, and a couple of friends called me fat, and I remember that kind of stuck in
Man,
my head for some reason.
yeah.
Even one word, but I think I mean, obviously, I don't have like crystal clear memory of those times, but that moment does stick in my head. So if I had to, and eventually I stopped becoming friends with them.
Yeah,
They
those
end up
jerks.
being, they end up, yeah, and they end up being like fine adults, and I'm sure they did not know
Yeah.
what they were doing, but um, that I think was definitely the catalyst. And so I wouldn't say I was starving myself, um, though. If you look at my mom's house, well, they sold it, but she has like her workout room. She has all these pictures of like me and my 2 brothers, all of our pictures from like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, all the way like a crazy room. Like if you walked in
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
you'd be looking for the exit, like you're about to get murdered or something like that. And my 7th grade picture is missing, and I always ask her why, and she has, "Oh, I just lost it." I'm like, "That's you don't lose anything." And so I think I probably just looked very sunken, and she didn't wanna she didn't want
Ah,
I'm just speculating. She never said that.
right, right.
I was just very, very choosy about what I ate and just, like, didn't eat a lot, and,
Mm,
eventually I got myself into a more healthy relationship with food where I started becoming really into fitness,
mhm,
supplements, worked at GNC, was working out a lot. But even like I can think back to high school. Um, I wouldn't eat candy. I wouldn't eat pretzels. I remember
mhm.
my friends would try to like get me to eat something that wasn't like good,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I wouldn't do it. I had the willpower of like the Rock. Not that I'm
Yeah.
comparing myself to the Rock. That guy's like
Yeah,
a
yeah,
Spartacus specimen, but I just had a lot of willpower.
yeah. Well, willpower is a really interesting thing, and actually, I wanted to shine light. you said, I don't have a very clear memory, but there's one thing that sticks in your memory, and that's really normal. What's interesting is I don't really want to invoke the T word. Well, say the word T word trauma, but like when we take an experience and we attach a strong emotion to that experience, regardless of what stage in life we are, it kind of gets burned into our brain a little bit, and that becomes a filter with which we kind of like look through life. You know, I it sounds a bit meta to put it this way, but it's like you know, what we perceive as reality isn't actually reality. It's our interpretation of it.
Mhm.
And how do we interpret it? Well, we base it on sort of these filters that we get over that we accumulate kind of through life experience. And so, there's an element of you, and so like obviously the working out, getting healthy, using supplements, all this kind of stuff, which is a great thing, but like it was maybe still coming from sort of this place of like, I'm not quite sure I fit in. I feel a little bit awkward. I get called fat. I don't ever want to be that again. I don't ever want to feel that again. As I think
Yeah.
maybe, and you may not have even consciously thought about it, but I kind of that's what I imagine kind of taking place.
I try. Yeah, you're probably right. I never really thought of it that way, but I remember trying to intentionally create a better relationship with food. And I remember ninth grade, I started eating more and working out and getting active in sports. And then I just felt like I had a healthier relationship with whatever I was processing. But you're right, it probably was still from that same experience, just I was handling it a little bit differently, you know?
Mm-mm. Teen years are always fun, and you would have been in high school back in the '90s, I think.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, you probably graduate. I graduated in 2000. I'm gonna guess you graduated in like '97 or '98 thereabouts, or
97. Yep.
yeah, you know, and it's like listen to us date ourselves here. Like you went through high school really without the internet. How did you
God, I
how did you
know.
get through? Like I just like oh my gosh, how'd you make it through high school without the internet?
I know my daughters complained about like the Wi-Fi not working. I was like, "Do you understand what a router sounds like at like a 28.8 where it's like
Yeah,
moving at slow like a snail's pace?" I feel like I try not to slip into like back in my day, but it always
right,
comes
right,
out, you
right.
know?
It's kind of hard to avoid it, right? Just kind of share our experience. Like, I imagine like my grandparents for periods of time in their life didn't have electricity, let alone the internet.
Phew, wow, that's
Yeah,
crazy. Think
yeah.
about that.
We're like not that far removed from like pretty primitive sort of conditions of life. And, not again, not to get too existential here, but I think, man, like if one big solar flare coming off the sun could like fry all of our electronic devices, you know, and you think, man, if we lost that, how would we get through?
You know what's
That'd be
funny
quite a
though, John?
challenge.
So we went to Alaska recently, and
Yeah,
very very recently actually on a cruise. My family,
beautiful.
and it was gorgeous. But I don't know. We just had no reception, so we had no reception in Alaska. Forget about it. There was like we might as well been in no man's land,
Yeah,
and so there was a good part of the trip where I had no phone. I had it, but it just didn't do anything,
yeah,
and it was. I quickly got used to it, and it was kind of
yeah,
nice, you know.
yeah. Yeah, and Alaska's gorgeous. When I was in the Navy, I used to sail up and down the West Coast, and we'd sail up to Alaska. So I used to joke that I got like 7 or 8 Alaskan cruises in, but it wasn't quite in the same degree of comfort. Yeah. So, so you get through high school. You're now kind of into working out in shape, that kind of stuff. Um, were you already like a part of the family business at this point in time, or what was kind of your awareness that this was a thing that your family did?
Uh, Early on, I mean, I've always dabbled into like entrepreneurial things. You know, even today, like you asked me what I did, I didn't describe everything. I've got a couple other things that I do on the side, so I've always just kind of dabbling. And maybe that's good or bad. I don't know. They say you have to be laser focused, but I just like to
Yeah,
follow my heart and all of that. You know.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
totally.
so I would work in the family business during like summer breaks. Not all the
Okay.
time. Like I worked for an oral surgeon sometimes, like handling cleaning instruments and things, whatever they needed me to do. And then I would, yeah, during high school, I would, during breaks, summer breaks, I would work there. So I knew my dad owned his own business. My uncle, my grandfather, they were all in it. And so I knew they had a business. And maybe that's what planted the seeds. I don't know. But I didn't go into the family business, though, right out of college. I had a couple of jobs outside of college before I took the jump into the business.
Mm. You actually said something there you just kind of glossed over. You worked for an oral surgeon. Is that like a dentist or?
It's like getting your teeth like implants and like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I would actually be the person, and I don't even know. I mean, I wasn't qualified. I mean, I guess it's only you're holding a thing that sucks up the
Oh, I
blood,
wasn't
but
qualified to do this job.
yeah, I won't mention the name in case I get him in trouble. But uh, he would be taking the tooth out, and my job was to take the little pencil-looking thing that sucks up the blood as it's coming
Yeah,
out of the mouth, so the person doesn't choke. And so I'd have to
right.
like it was very. I was like, I had moments where I was like, what am I doing right now? And or like when you give someone laughing gas, they tell you a lot when they're on laughing gas. That
Yeah,
I
boy.
remember that too.
So how long did you first of all, how do you find a job like this?
He was a neighbor. Yeah, he was a
Okay.
neighbor. Yeah.
He's like, "Hey, kid." Or maybe you weren't a kid at this point. "Hey, kid, I could use some help. You wanna vacuum up blood out of people's mouths?" Like, what was the pitch?
The pictures I needed a job and he needed like an assistant type person. Like he had other people working there, like the
Right,
hygienists
right.
that were qualified. I was more just like doing the odd end stuff. So I did
Mhm.
that during college breaks and I worked at Ballantine, our family business, in the high school breaks. And so
Okay.
I kind of juggled both.
Yeah. So, you didn't you didn't yank any teeth yourself, and you didn't administer, or did you
No,
administer any of the laughing gas, or were you just present when they were receiving it?
I was just present and laughing with them when they were receiving it. No, I didn't do anything like that. I was just in the room.
What was the craziest thing you ever heard from someone who was on nitrous?
Um, well, this is the clean show, right? So they were just making very inappropriate like sexual comments.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah. I don't wanna say, like, people's sort of true nature appears, but I wonder if it's something similar to to alcohol minus the sort of, maybe mechanical impairment, but, um,
yeah.
yeah. Did you hear any, like, crazy, like, stories like, "Oh, well, 3 years ago, I murdered a guy and buried him in the bushes," or, something like that?
No, but one of the doctors said that one time he was giving it to this lady and she started taking like her clothes off after having it, and so he was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa!" So he like backed out of the room and had one of the hygienists come in to help, and so I didn't see that. That was like before my time, but
Yeah, that'd be actually kind of a dangerous situation to find yourself in professionally because if
yes,
somehow, yeah, that could really go sideways. Wow, he handled that he handled it very well. Um, so you went to college. What did you study in college? Was it anything connected to business or?
I studied marketing. I had a minor in
Okay.
finance too, which is very random because my head doesn't really work that way, but I just was like one class away from getting it. So I was like, okay. But my main thing was marketing. I knew that's what I wanted to do. I didn't know it was going to be in the family business, but I knew I wanted to be in that world somehow. And so I had
Mhm.
a marketing degree. And I've always been self-taught too. Like I mentioned some of my side businesses, like I've had e-commerce websites, affiliate marketing, SEO, search engine optimization. I've always taught myself. I've always been like kind of self-taught in those areas, starting from like my first job, like right out of college. I would get up before I had to go in, and I would just work on like, online stuff, building websites and creating
Right.
ebooks to try to sell. So my mind is always, it's like what I understand. Like when you understand something, you gravitate towards it.
Right. Like
So
you have an idea and you're like, huh, I want to. Why don't I solve this problem here with this solution? You know.
yes, yeah,
Yes.
and then
So you have
yeah,
a mind that like looks for problems,
I think yeah, I like to think so. Yeah, I'm
or
always like
maybe I
trying to
just need to like looks for them, but observes them, and then sort of,
or
has
notices them. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
like the different lens that you look through, you like, see problems, and then how can I solve that? It's yeah, I think that's a muscle you can build too. I don't think it necessarily comes natural to me. I've learned just through my experiences and my own self education that that's for an entrepreneur. That's like a good skill set to have.
Mm-mm. With regards to marketing, sometimes marketing has a bit of a questionable reputation, shall we say?
Mhm.
You know, and I studied marketing psychology as well. So I joke that I use my powers for good now. But for people who are listening, especially people who don't really have an idea of what this world is, because I think most of us we're on the receiving end of marketing almost all the time, and very rarely are we even aware of it. And and I'll preface this just a little bit. I used to have this hang up about telling people what I did about my business, about the
Mhm.
fact that I'm a nutrition coach that helps people. And then I was chatting with someone, and they're like, how many times a day do you get reminded to eat something like McDonald's? I was like,
True.
probably a lot. Like, from billboards to ads to whatever. So I was like, he's like, yeah, you think anybody's going to care all that much if they see something about, hey, this is what I do and how I help people? Like,
Mhm.
it's like, oh, you know, but how do you see marketing? What do you see it as?
Well, what's interesting in marketing is that there's so many different facets of it. I mean, there's uh, direct mail, like we do at Ballantine. There's the digital side. Inside the digital, there's countless different strategies from social to search engine optimization, Google. Then you got billboards. There's like so many different things. Product marketing. For me, it's marketing is just trying to tell a story about what you sell, whether it's a product or service.
Mm,
It's telling the story of what makes you different and why they should talk to you, buy from you. I mean, that's
right.
marketing.
Yeah, and I think marketing is maybe a skill that a lot of people could use, even if they're not necessarily running their own business. I think about maybe you're looking to shift careers or something like that, or even just in a position that you're in, being able to talk about what you do well. Because really, in a sense, maybe all of us kind of trade our time for money in, in one way, shape, or form or another.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you. Yeah. It's I think marketing and sales, they're two very necessary skills to know no matter what you do. And I think like, the title of this thing from awkward kid, so for me, sales was very challenging. I remember when I went to Ballantine, I first started at Ballantine and I was starting to get involved in some of these sales meetings, like
Yeah.
going to a prospect's office. I still remember my friend, high school friend, she got a job at this mortgage company. They do a tremendous amount of direct mail, so they were a good prospect for us. She got me the meeting, okay, because
Mhm.
she was in the marketing department.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this was when I just started going on sales calls. It's very awkward, just not very comfortable with it at all. And I went with my dad because he was like, that's what he did.
Yeah.
And I remember being in that meeting. I don't remember feeling very nervous. I remember feeling very awkward. And the way I handle that is I would sweat. And so I was in that meeting sweating profusely, like my face.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm in the sales meeting trying to I mean my dad was the one mostly talking, but I
I'm
was
trying to
like
play it
still
cool
there in a
here.
suit, pretty cool, sweaty as a beast, and I could feel the sweat dripping, dripping. And so it's really hard to keep yourself focused when you've got beads of sweat dripping down your face.
Yeah.
Oh, that meeting could not end fast enough. You know, I don't sweat anymore. Like anything, you put in enough reps, and
Mm-mm.
eventually you get comfortable. You struggle through those moments. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's very clear in my head right now.
Yeah, so again, we go back to that, like, when you have an experience that has a strong emotion attached to it, it really kind of sticks out in your mind. So I'm curious if you can remember this, because this is probably, what, 20 years ago or something now?
This was 20 years ago. Yeah.
Do you have any recollection of kinda, like, what was running through your mind that was making you feel so awkward about the whole thing?
I think because I tend to overthink things and put pressure on
Mm,
myself, and so I think it was more I was proud that I got the meeting through someone I knew. I wanted it to go well. I felt the pressure. I just felt like tense in the meeting. I don't remember being nervous. I just remember it meaning a lot, and I wanted it to go well. And I just felt it was uncharted territory for me. It was like I feel like things are uncomfortable until they're comfortable, and so that was still an uncomfortable moment for me because I just didn't have enough experience with those situations, like the business setting and in my suit. And it just for some people they get nervous. I just get a sweaty face.
mm. Are there times now that you still get nervous or feel awkward?
Yes, I've just being 43, I've put in enough reps where I'm able to process it better. But yeah, if I go to like a networking event, if I go to a party that where I know that I'm gonna not know most of the people there, I'm only gonna know a couple people in town or whatever. I still feel that way. You would think
Mm.
at 43 you would get past that, but here we are. It's just not as bad as it once was. It's still
Yeah.
there though, kind of like, just kind of popping its head up.
Yeah, and I think about that. I mean, what's there's a saying that's something like, everywhere, something about growth and being outside of your comfort zone. Essentially, like, if you want to grow, it's going to happen outside of wherever you're comfortable. Because the reason we get
Yes.
comfortable is because there's no impetus to grow and change. And so, I think about the first time I did it, like a Facebook Live. It was June of 2016. So that's like 6 years ago now.
Yeah.
And Facebook Live was like a brand new thing. It was the most, and our social media coordinator at the time came into the business that I was running. It was a bricks and mortar nutrition and supplement store, and she burst in because she'd just been at this sort of social media meeting. We were just learning a little bit about what social media even really was out for actual, like, business purposes versus just posting dumb cat videos or something. And she's like, "We're gonna do a Facebook Live." And I'm like, "What? What is this?" You know? And she's like, "Well, you're gonna talk about the bond." Our company was called Bond Nutrition, and it was like, "We're gonna talk about the bond pyramid of health," and it was sort of our basic steps for with the foundation of a healthy lifestyle. And yeah, it was just like super awkward sort of thing, and I think it cut out once or twice, and yeah, it felt really, really strange. And now here I am doing multiple live broadcasts a week, running 3 or 4 podcasts, and so it's kind of like you just put yourself in that situation. But true, like before every time before I go live, I'm like, I never know how the conversation is going to go. I'm always interested in the person, but I'm like, man, how will this conversation go? So I think I love that you're willing to just kind of share that. Hey, you know what, this still happens, because maybe some people see like someone who's like a really polished professional. You got a couple businesses going and things like that, and it's like, no, no, I'm still human. I still have some struggles.
Yeah, I mean, I want to commend you too. Like doing this, I have my own podcast, and you're doing this live. We don't know what we're going to talk about before. There's not scripted questions. We just kind
Just
of go
throw you
with
into
it.
the fire.
Yeah, so it's good. Yeah, you do a good job. So it's like practice makes perfect. I think back to
Yeah.
when I moved into town. One of the third grade moms and the husband and father wanted to throw a party for the other third grade parents, just so we could all
Hmm.
meet each other. But they have older kids, so they all knew each other. We were the new people to town. And my wife's like, "Do you want to go?" I'm like, "Not really, but I feel like we should." And so we walk into this house and don't know anyone. Like literally,
Yeah.
I recognize their faces a little bit because you see people at pick up and drop off, but don't know them at all. And it was terrible. But then we got through it and ended up being like an okay night. Like people are human; they talk to you. If you talk,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
talk back to you. Um, but I would, it just we got through it, and then I was like, okay, well, that's we got through that one. We can get to the next get through the next thing, and so it's putting those reps in.
Do you have like any particular icebreakers that so you're at a party, and you're like, oh gosh, I feel kind of awkward. Maybe my armpits are getting a little bit sweaty here. I can feel a little bit of neck sweat happening, under the collar here. You know, you're just gonna walk up to someone. What do you say?
My strategy is I stare at the person long enough until they feel like they need to talk to me, and so no, I don't do that.
Just stare
um,
awkwardly at people.
yeah. No, what I do is there's a quote that sticks out in my head. I don't know who said it, but if you want to become interested, I'm sorry, if you want to become interesting, become interested in the other person. I'm butchering that completely, but the point
Hmm.
is to become interested in the other person. It's fun. It's tough though for me though. Sometimes it kind of feels like I'm in interview mode because I've got the podcast, and so I'm
Right.
just like firing off all these questions where this person probably thinks like, "Where's the camera? Am I being interviewed here?"
Yeah.
But 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 to answer your question, it's really just to become interested in the other person authentically, and
Hmm.
minimize the amount of time you talk about yourself, and that generally works.
Yeah. It's I know the quote. Yeah. I think that's probably why I run a podcast, is because I'm like genuinely interested in people's stories. And so I'm thinking you kind of got into the family business in your early 20s, is that right? Now,
23.
is there a certain, because the company is probably, because it's been around for, 50 years or whatnot. Um, is there a certain amount of like, I don't know, pressure or perception of like special treatment because this is the family business? Like you just get slotted into this role or this position, or what was that like?
I don't think so. I think that that can be a problem in family businesses. We're pretty conscious of that, so we all get treated the same. There's like no special treatment. I'd like to think that our team members would say the same. Like, my dad. Sorry if you're watching this, Dad, but he was pretty tough to work with, to work for. Expected a lot. Very intense. Not as much towards his later years as he was getting closer to retirement, but there was a window where you had to have the answer if he asked you. You can't say I think. If you said I think, he's like, you think or you know. That's what he would say. And so like, and that I got the treatment, everyone got the treatment. It wasn't just so I think we're aware that that could be an erosion point for family businesses where the family gets special treatment. And so we've done our best to make sure that that's a non-issue.
Yeah. Oh, I just got a comment from Justice here. Justice, how you doing, man? I lived in South Africa for about 11 years ago. So, Justice, I miss you. I'm very proud of you. Thank you, man. That means a lot coming from you. Um, yeah, we've had some crazy times traveling and living around the world. So, how cool is that to have a connection come back 11 years later and go, hey, you know?
It's
And
awesome.
so, what's kind of your role in the company now? What do you?
Well, so if you had asked me this question a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I would have said mostly sales and strategy and just, trying to work on like the big picture stuff. But when we got back from Alaska, the first day back, my main person on the digital division resigned. She was managing the team. And so I wasn't expecting that. But I'm happy for her. She's moving on to a new role at a very large company. So it's definitely a good move for her. So now the answer to that question is I'm doing a little bit of sales, but I'm also now managing the team and doing some other things in that realm. Just I'm doing it on purpose because I want to try to get closer to the team get closer to the clients, see,
Mm.
if I can figure out any new efficiencies or new ways of doing things. Sometimes, in my opinion, at least, it's good to get close. Sometimes, like poke your head back in and see, how things are being done, and should we change things up a little bit.
Well, think about like I don't know if you ever read Dilbert, but
A
the
little bit, yeah.
yeah, the manager, the pointy-haired boss, he's he's so completely distant and removed from like the employees and what's taking place, and he's so absolutely disconnected. I think there's something to be said for when you're in a position of management or authority to make sure you are connected to people because they're the ones that really help you pay the bills.
Yes, exactly. So that's what I'm doing. Her last day is tomorrow, and so I'm just starting to transition into her role. And all right, what does this hybrid role look like for me now? I still have to do some sales and other stuff, but I also need to manage a team. So that's my current challenge, and I'm working
Mhm.
through like what does that look like.
And how do you juggle this while having 3 kids? Like, I got 1, and sometimes 1 already feels like a big challenge. We're planning on having another one, but, how do you juggle, like, these sort of hefty business responsibilities and having a family and keeping that running?
The goal is the answer is being a mediocre parent. It's like no, it,
Yeah,
I
just
I
settle
don't
for
think that.
mediocre.
Yeah, how, I would say I got this from one of my masterminds. It's really about refocus,
Mhm,
a rebalance. I don't think like work life balance is is possible, like that exact formula. This is just
mm,
me, my opinion speaking. Take
mhm,
it or leave it. It's more about rebalance. So like certain seasons of life, like right now, the business needs a little more of my attention, and then my kids need more of my attention. But I also look for opportunities to be involved in their life. Like they play a lot of sports, so I'll
mm,
drive them to sports. I did that last night for my daughter's softball tryouts, and so just looking for moments of time to spend with them. Um, Also, the weekends we usually go out to lunch at one of our favorite restaurants, and so just being intentional about how the time is used because we all have the same 24 hours, and I do
yeah,
not get I
yeah,
do not get this perfect. So I'm just like talking out loud as terms of what I try to do.
mhm, mhm,
Is just try to be intentional. Like I know when I'm about to die or whatever, I'm not going to think about business, be about kids, my kids or family, and
mhm.
so the business stuff really won't matter, but the business stuff is important because it's
It's
we
how
need
you
it
pay the
to.
bills.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just being intentional and just doing the best I can. And when I mess up, like if my kids are trying to talk to me and I'm busy with an email, and I'm like, please, I'm trying to answer this very important email. I just try to learn from those mistakes.
Yeah, I was gonna make some joke about keeping a roof over your head.
That's good. Very witty.
Yeah, yeah, very very important. I mean, I love the dad jokes. I I just can't wait until my kid's old enough to really fully grasp them. Oh, what was one today? Okay, what do you call a group of dinosaurs singing?
I don't know.
A
Oh,
tyrannic
Baronet.
a Tyrannosaurus.
That's terrible.
That is terrible. I'll tell one more just while we're at it. Why do fish swim in salt water?
Couldn't even guess.
The pepper makes them sneeze.
Oh wow, wow.
So,
Your kids will be
uh, yeah.
your kids will be very proud of those jokes.
Oh, I'm sure if my kid ever like listens to this episode, later as a teenager or something for some reason was like, "Oh, I want to see like what my dad's podcast was all about back in the day," and he hears these absolutely terrible jokes, he'll probably be mortified. So,
Well, so
uh,
we had this softball charity event this past weekend in town. So it's like a couple hundred people. They get together, everyone donates money, and they break the teams out into like basically you play on your whatever your oldest kid's grade is. So it's like the
mhm,
kindergarten dads and the first grade dads and so forth. And so of course being the awkward, like overthinking, I'm like really building this event up in my head because I want to do well. I don't want to like be striking out every play. A lot of people are watching, my kids are watching. And so I was practicing, went to the batting cages. I'm not a softball player though, so what I didn't know is that sneakers on turf is very slippery. Sneakers on turf, and so literally my first at bat, I hit the ball. It was a mediocre hit, and I went to run my heart out, and I slipped and fell right at my face. And so I was like, oh my god. I saw that one going a little bit differently in my head. Um, but then the second at bat, I blasted it to the outfield. I could hear my daughter saying, "That's my dad,"
Aw.
and obviously they forgot about the first at bat where I was like face down on the ground.
Yeah,
But
yeah. But I think that's just kinda typical of life, right? Life's always gonna, kick us in the junk one way or another, right? Nobody saw 2 years of pandemic coming. I think
true.
2019, we weren't even thinking about this. So,
True.
Now
Very true.
you have another company. Is it called the Morning Upgrade? Is that right?
Yeah, it's called Morning Upgrade. That's my podcast. That is my well, it's a book. It's a morning routine product. It's my mission is to raise the awareness of personal development and morning routines,
Mm,
especially for entrepreneurs, but really for everyone. I mean, personal growth is important for everyone, in my opinion.
yeah,
Um, and so it started out as a blog, and then I just have evolved it over time. Like I added a podcast 6 months after I launched it, and then I created a morning routine product, and I wrote the book. And so I'm not really sure where it's going next. I'm kind of just having fun with it. Honestly,
yeah,
I am interweaving it into Ballantine. So when we get a new client, I'll mail them the book, and it's
right,
called the Entrepreneur Secret Weapon. And so most of our clients are business owners, like small business owners. So me sending that book, it makes sense. It's not something completely out of left field. And so I'm
right,
trying to
right.
find ways to intertwine the two businesses. And I'm not sure what's coming next. Maybe a mastermind, maybe a course. I'm not sure. I haven't really fully thought it out yet. Just having fun
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah, but I think whenever I mentor someone in business, because I do teach people how to build online businesses as well, just kind of the nuts and bolts of what does it actually look like. One of the things that I teach at the core concepts, I call it start, learn, evolve, and it's like you just got to get started with something. I had no idea what I was doing when I started trying to build an online business. I was like, I was a tech dinosaur, but I was like, well, I've got an email address and a Facebook account, so we'll just kind of start there and see where it goes. I didn't expect that like a few years later that I would have like a pretty successful business and be mentoring other people in business and running podcasts and things like that. But it's like none of this would be happening if I didn't just kind of take those first few awkward steps where I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I know I have the ability to help people, but I don't know how to make a business. I mean, I've been running a bricks and mortar business, but online is a totally different world. It's a totally different beast. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I agree with you, John. Because like when I launched Morning Upgrade, I just put up a free template because I wanted to just get it going. I didn't want to
yeah,
overthink the WordPress design, and I just wanted to get the domain registered, the website up, looking decent, but not like not you know it was a free template,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
get the content going. I think it was maybe like 9 months until I paid to have it designed into something a little bit more professional for the time being, at least. Maybe in a couple of years I'll do a new design. But I think you're right.
yeah.
You need to. There's like the Michael Masterson. He says, "quote fire no fire aim like fire before you aim or something like that."
Oh, it's a ready, fire, aim.
Yes, ready fire aim. But I butchered both quotes there. But
There you
thankfully you know
go.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but I love that's really true. There was another quote I was gonna put out there, but my train of thought went totally off the tracks, so sorry for all those live listeners. It was really witty, and it probably would have blown your minds, but, it's kinda slipped there, so, um, well, man, it's been really interesting chatting with you. You got a lot of things that go, and slightly different guests than I normally have, but I think it's interesting for people to kind of an insight into what this sort of life looks like. Um, what is it about morning that you think is most important for people?
I mean, morning routines. For me. It started with Miracle Morning. I was going through some challenges in the business around 2017, and I started to just look for ways to invest in myself. Made a lot of changes just to try to change my identity and my mindset. And I came across Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, and
Mhm.
that's the book that started morning routines. I think for a lot of people. There's the
Mm.
5 a.m. Club too by Robin Sharma, but I happened to find Miracle Morning, and so it just made sense to me. Like you know, getting up early to invest in yourself, because I do consider investing in yourself the best investment you can make. And so
Right,
it made
yeah.
sense to me, just getting up early and, doing things for yourself.
Yeah, it's, and I think that there's some maybe a perception out there like, "Oh, I have to get up at 5 AM, I have to brew my, maybe my Brazilian matcha tea while I sit on my porch and write in my journal and meditate and then go for a, 30-minute run," and all this kind of stuff, you know? For you, what do you really picture? Because hey, look, you're a busy entrepreneur, you got 3 kids, you got a lot of other stuff going on. What does your kinda morning look like?
And so, yeah, so in my podcast, I get to hear everyone's morning routine. So you're right. There's some that are like, oh, baby, like, whoa,
Yeah,
Nelly, that is a long, but it works for them. And
sure,
so
yeah.
it life fills their cup. But I've got some guests that use like red light therapy and just like all these different things I didn't even know was a thing. For me, I had a longer routine, like hour and a half for a while, but I couldn't. There's too much friction, so I knew I needed to keep it under a half an hour. So for me, it's more like bite-sized chunks of different things: gratitude practice, setting my priority for the day, who I'm going to reach out to today, a little bit of journaling, a little bit of meditation, a little bit of exercise. It's not my only exercise, but just to,
Mm.
pull ups and things like that
Just
to
get
get
the
the
blood
blood
flowing.
flowing.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's like bites and read a little bit, read a couple of pages. And so I just have these bite-sized chunks of things that I do that adds up to about 25, 30 minutes.
It's
And
almost like
that's doable.
a morning appy platter.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, I
never
like
thought of
that.
it that way.
This could be a new product, or just a new way to describe what it is. Because I think a lot of people would feel pressure around this idea of a morning routine, like, oh, I have to meditate for X amount of time, and I have to exercise for X amount of time, and to journal and practice gratitude and say my affirmations, and it feels really overwhelming. So if somebody was wanting to like kind of get started with a morning routine, how would you say someone should maybe try and kick something off?
I mean, there's a few strategies that I think are like universal for everyone, like meaning that they would benefit from it. And this is nothing groundbreaking that I'm about to say, because if you do any research on morning routines on Miracle Morning, it's all very common because it's what works. But it's the gratitude practice, obviously exercise, meditation. Really, meditation and gratitude practice to me are like the main pillars.
Mhm.
But you could argue that celebrating the win, which I also do, journaling, those are all. It's hard to really say what would be like if you had 10 minutes. What would you do? I think you need
Yeah.
to play around with anything. It's like you think about when you learn how to cook and you have like a recipe. You play around with it enough, and you kind of make it your own and find out what works best. I think you just have to try, get started, and see what works best for you. But those are some of the main things that I would recommend.
I like that analogy, and I keep it fairly simple. We have morning snuggle time. That's like my one non-negotiable. Where like my little boy, we toss him. Well, actually toss him. We gently, place him in bed, like kind of beside us, and we'll just like, he'll tell us all about his dreams or whatever. I have no idea what he's saying, but he's talking a lot and like waving his arms and big grandiose gestures. But
That's
we
great.
just we just have that time together where it's like I want to connect to the two most important people in my life and be reminded of why I'm doing what I do. And that
Mhm.
helps me to decide how do I want to spend my time today, and does spending, if I'm spending time on something, it's taking time away from spending time with them. Is it making their life better or not? And it really helped me to sort of get rid of some of the extraneous noise that I had in my life where I was just consuming, maybe social media or YouTube videos or things like that kind of needlessly and say, recognize that what am I trading off? So I try to have lunch together, morning snuggle time and dinner and jammy time. Like those are all blocked off my calendar. Because it's as entrepreneurs, I think it's super easy to just fill our time. There's always more work that can be done. There's always more business to be had.
Yep.
And if we don't make these things a priority, yeah, it never happens. But the other thing I've mentioned just about a morning is that's when our brain is the freshest and or
Mhm.
should be. I mean, may not always feel fresh for people in the morning, especially if you're not a morning person, but our brain is the freshest. We haven't reached the point of decision fatigue. And so I think important decisions, it's best to kind of make them in the morning if you have that chance. Yeah, when things are fresh. Do you have like an evening routine to kind of like line you up for that? Because, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning is good, except if you're going to bed at like 1 a.m. kind of thing.
Yeah, it's funny you say that 'cause I've been thinking about that more. I don't have one that's like set in stone. I'm playing around with different things. I'm part of this program called Optimize by this guy Brian Johnson. It's like
Mhm.
a 300-day program, and one of the things they're really trying to stress to us is having like a nighttime routine of a digital sunset, basically turning off electronics an hour before bed. I just have
Mhm.
failed miserably at that, but
As
that's
do
on
I.
my radar. I want to try to get the nighttime, like no electronics 1 hour before bed, and then how I would fill that time: meditation, reading, and spend time with my family. So I get it some nights, I don't get it other nights, and so I'm just trying to figure out more consistency.
Yeah.
But that's a goal of mine.
Yeah, and it's great that you're not trying to hold yourself to some impossible standard of perfection. Like it takes time to shift these routines as well. That's the other thing
Yeah,
is, maybe like some people think about going on a diet and trying to overhaul everything from day one, and maybe they think about a morning routine and go, "Well, shoot, I have to overhaul everything from day one." And it's like, no, you don't. Just start with one small thing. It could be just literally taking 60 seconds going, what am I grateful for today? What's one thing I'd like to accomplish today? And writing that down on a piece of paper and then going about your day. Just that little pause, and it can grow from there because I think it's more important to pattern a behavior than it is to perfect a behavior.
I agree. I always think I try to get things right 80% of the time. If I can get things right 80% of the time, then in my mind I'm winning. It's
Mm,
hard for me, and some people need to be all or nothing. I need a little more flexibility uh,
yeah.
with things. It's the way I'm wired, but
Yeah. Well, look, if you're winning 80% of the time, you're way above average, right? That's what I try to explain to my clients as well. It's like you don't have to be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's actually one of the chapters of my book, not to promote my book, but it's one of the
Go right
chapters,
ahead. I mean, the book is called the Morning Upgrade, is it? Or
It's called The Entrepreneur's Secret Weapon.
oh,
It's
that's right. Okay.
how to use personal development and morning routines to upgrade your life and business. And so one of the chapters is about getting it right 80% of the time, because I've had people comment that like they can't get into personal growth because it's too strict. And I was like, no, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to be. You just, give yourself some grace and flexibility. It doesn't, just get started.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this fear of perfection or not being perfect stops a lot of people, and by doing that, you kind of make it a lot more accessible, which I think is amazing. I was just going to see if I could find your website here and just give people a glimpse of it. Let's see here. Oh,
Morningupgrade.com or Ballantine.com, which depends what
yeah,
site
there
you're
we go.
talking
And
about.
there's like a little shot there of like the entrepreneur's secret weapon, the book there, and actually Morning Upgrade podcast featuring Bri Tartaglione.
Bree, yeah, that's the guest I recommend you have on. She's got a great story, and so
Yeah.
I was on her podcast, she was on my podcast.
Okay. Well, that's a preview for folks that she might become a guest. And there's a great story, but I'm not going to tell you what it is until until I see if I
Yes,
can get her on
like
the
that.
show.
T-
So a little teaser. So if you were to just take, from your life experience, kind of take one nugget of wisdom, if people listening, you want to give them kind of one takeaway that they can take action on today, what would you like to share with people?
to me, this is top mine, and we've kind of already danced around this, but I think it's just really important to pull it out, because I think a lot of people, they let, including myself, they sometimes let their fears or their awkwardness or um, their mind talk them out of certain things. Like if I hadn't gone
Mm,
to the party, if I hadn't played in the softball game, if I hadn't done this, there's always ways to like talk yourself out of things. But I think putting yourself out of your comfort zone and putting yourself in situations where you are going to grow, I never regret, like whenever I'm going to go do something like where I know I'm going to feel sort of uncomfortable and I do it anyway. There's never been a time that I've like regretted it. I've always like, I'm glad I did that. Um, I should do more of this kind of stuff, because those kind of reps, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, it does help grow you as a person. And to me, that's like the meaning of life is to be growing.
yeah. Yeah.
That's just the meaning of life for me.
The meaning of life, always be growing. If you're not growing, you're dying, I think is how it gets put. So, well, Ryan, I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy, so thank you so much for being on today. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, John, it was great. Thanks for having me, and great job.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Between the Before and After. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like, share, subscribe, or leave a review, because that helps this podcast to reach and inspire more people. I love exploring the stories that take place between the before and after, the powerful experiences that shape who we become. And I love human potential. I love the possibilities that lie within us. So whatever you may be up against, I hope these stories inspire you, because if you're still here, your story's not done yet, so keep moving forward.
Anyone can come from any place of brokenness and destitution and build an amazing life.